August 1945. Across the Japanese home islands, the machinery falls silent. In vast industrial complexes stretching from Nagoya to Nagasaki, production lines that once assembled the most feared fighter aircraft in the Pacific Theatre grind to a halt. The Mitsubishi 6M0, symbol of Japanese air power, will never again emerge from these cavernous facilities. Inside the factories, thousands of partially completed airframes stand frozen in various stages of assembly. Jigs hold wings that will never be fitted. Fuselages await engines that will never arrive. Outside, beneath camouflage netting and scattered amongst bomb-damaged structures, hundreds of completed aircraft sit abandoned, their propellers still, their cockpits empty. The scale is staggering. Mitsubishi's primary facilities in Nagoya alone contained production equipment capable of assembling 50 Zeros per month at peak capacity. Nakajima's plants added another enormous production capability. Across Japan, 11 major factories and countless smaller workshops had dedicated themselves to Zero production. Now, with Emperor Hirohito's surrender broadcast still echoing, a different kind of battle begins. American occupation forces race to document, seize, and ultimately decide the fate of this sprawling industrial infrastructure before it can be concealed, destroyed, or claimed by other Allied powers arriving in the Pacific. The situation confronting Allied forces in September 1945 defied easy comprehension. Zero production had involved not merely a handful of assembly plants, but an entire networked industrial system. Mitsubishi Heavy Industries operated the primary manufacturing complex at Nagoya, where the Zero had been designed and where production reached its zenith. This facility alone encompassed over 400,000 square meters of factory floor space. Nakajima Aircraft Company manufactured Zeros under license at plants in Koizumi and Ota, adding similar capacity. Smaller sub-assembly facilities operated in Suzuka, Kasumigara, and elsewhere. The Americans discovered approximately 750 completed Zeros scattered across these sites, with another 300 in various stages of assembly. Some sat pristine beneath protective covers. Others had been cannibalized for parts during Japan's desperate final months. Still others bore damage from American bombing raids that had targeted these facilities with increasing intensity through 1945. The immediate challenge was staggering. How does one secure, document, and process such a vast industrial landscape while simultaneously managing the broader occupation of a defeated nation? The factories contained not merely aircraft but complete production systems, enormous presses for stamping aluminium alloy components, specialized jigs for wing assembly, miles of conveyor systems, and vast stockpiles of raw materials. The debate amongst Allied planners emerged immediately. Should these facilities be preserved for study, dismantled and shipped elsewhere, or destroyed to ensure Japan could never rebuild military air power? The Zero itself had earned profound respect through 4 years of combat. Its exceptional range, maneuverability, and climbing performance had dominated Pacific skies in 1941 and 1942. Understanding exactly how Japan had manufactured such aircraft in quantity became an American priority. American operations began with systematic documentation. The United States Strategic Bombing Survey arrived in Japan during September 1945, tasked with assessing both bombing effectiveness and Japanese industrial capabilities. Teams descended upon every major Zero factory within weeks of the surrender. At Nagoya, survey personnel spent 3 weeks measuring, photographing, and cataloguing Mitsubishi's vast complex. They documented production rates. The factory had produced 3,879 Zeros between 1940 and 1945. They examined manufacturing techniques, discovering that Japanese engineers had developed innovative methods for working with the specialized aluminium alloys that gave the Zero its lightness. These alloys, designated extra super duralumin, required particular forming techniques that Mitsubishi had perfected. American engineers noted everything: press tonnage specifications, heat treatment protocols, quality control procedures, and workflow organization. The Technical Air Intelligence Unit operating from Yokohama coordinated the seizure of intact aircraft. Between September and November 1945, American forces selected approximately 60 Zeros in various configurations for shipment to the United States. These included early A6M2 models, the more common A6M5 variant, and rare examples like the A6M8 prototype. Aircraft were carefully crated at Japanese facilities using American supervision and Japanese labor. Transport ships carried them to Naval Air Station Alameda in California, Wright Field in Ohio, and the Naval Air Test Center at Patuxent River in Maryland. At Wright Field, Army Air Forces engineers conducted exhaustive technical evaluations through 1946 and 1947. They tested structural components to failure, analyzed metallurgy, and flew-captured examples extensively. Flight testing revealed specific performance parameters: maximum speed of 351 miles per hour at 16,000 feet, climbing rate of 3,100 feet per minute, and the remarkable combat radius of 1,200 miles that had so surprised American forces in 1941. These tests confirmed that whilst the Zero excelled in maneuverability and range, it sacrificed pilot protection and structural strength to achieve these qualities. The Americans also examined production economics. Analysis revealed that each Zero required approximately 3,000 man-hours to manufacture, comparable to American fighters, but achieved with less automated equipment. This finding influenced post-war American thinking about manufacturing efficiency and the relationship between automation and production capacity. British interest in Zero factories proved more limited but nonetheless significant. The British Commonwealth Occupation Force arrived in Japan in February 1946, establishing headquarters at Kura. Unlike the Americans, who focused on technical intelligence and comprehensive documentation, British priorities centered on understanding Japanese industrial capacity relative to Britain's own war-strained manufacturing base. British technical teams visited the Nagoya complex in March 1946, examining production methods with particular attention to labour organisation and quality control systems. Britain's aircraft industry faced severe resource constraints in 1946, and officials sought lessons from Japanese methods that achieved respectable production rates without American-style automation. The Royal Aircraft Establishment received 3 Zero airframes during 1946, shipped from Japan via Singapore. These aircraft underwent structural testing at Farnborough, where British engineers paid particular attention to the lightweight construction techniques. British aviation had traditionally emphasised robust construction. Japanese willingness to sacrifice structural margin for performance gains intrigued British designers, wrestling with their own performance versus survivability calculations. The findings influenced British thinking about lightweight structures for future carrier-based aircraft, though Britain's straitened post-war circumstances meant few immediate applications. British authorities also grappled with questions about Japanese industrial disarmament. As part of the Allied occupation structure, Britain participated in decisions about which facilities should be preserved, converted, or destroyed. British representatives generally supported moderate approaches that would allow Japanese industry to recover for peaceful purposes whilst preventing military resurgence. This position reflected both humanitarian concerns about Japanese economic recovery and practical British interests in eventual trade relationships with a reconstructed Japan. Soviet interest in Zero factories and Japanese aviation technology generally took unexpected forms. Soviet forces occupied Manchuria and northern Korea in August 1945, but never reached the Japanese home islands. However, Soviet intelligence operatives worked actively within occupied Japan, attempting to gather information about Japanese aviation technology, despite lacking official access to the primary sites. The Soviets had captured some Japanese aircraft in Manchuria, including several Zeros operated by Manchukuo puppet forces, but their knowledge of Japanese manufacturing methods remained limited. Soviet requests for access to Japanese aviation facilities went largely unanswered by American occupation authorities, who viewed such sharing as counter to American strategic interests in the emerging Cold War climate. The Soviets instead focused on recruiting Japanese aviation personnel who had been repatriated from Manchuria, or who might be approached within Japan itself. Soviet intelligence services made contact with several former Mitsubishi engineers during 1946 and 1947, seeking technical information about production methods and aircraft design principles. The extent of information transferred remains unclear, though Soviet post-war aviation development suggests limited direct influence from Japanese technology. Soviet designers pursued different priorities. They emphasized ruggedness and simplicity over the refinement that characterized Japanese designs. Where the Zero represented an extreme pursuit of performance through weight reduction, Soviet philosophy favoured robust construction that could tolerate both combat damage and rough field conditions. Nevertheless, Soviet interest in Japanese aviation manufacturing demonstrated their comprehensive approach to gathering technical intelligence across all former Axis powers. Whilst American and British efforts proceeded through official channels with Japanese cooperation, Soviet methods relied more heavily on covert intelligence gathering and recruitment of foreign specialists, methods they had refined during their occupation of Eastern Germany. The systematic elimination of Japan's zero production capacity began with Allied Control Council directives issued in late 1945. Supreme Commander Douglas MacArthur's headquarters determined that Japan's aviation industry must be completely dismantled to prevent any possibility of military resurgence. This policy left no ambiguity. All military aircraft production facilities would be destroyed, converted to civilian use, or demolished. The scale of destruction unfolded through 1946 and 1947. At Nagoya, Mitsubishi's vast complex faced systematic dismantling. American occupation forces supervised the removal of specialized military production equipment. Enormous presses used for forming aircraft components were cut apart with torches. Specialized jigs that held airframes during assembly became scrap metal. Wind tunnels were demolished. Heat treatment furnaces were dismantled. The factory buildings themselves, many damaged by wartime bombing, were either razed completely or converted to civilian manufacturing. By late 1947, no trace remained of the capability to produce military aircraft. Similar fates befell the Nakajima facilities at Koizumi and Ota, and the smaller plants across Japan. The hundreds of incomplete aircraft found in these factories met inglorious ends. Most were bulldozed into pits and buried. Others were burned. Some became targets for demolition training by American military personnel. The aluminium-rich Zero airframes represented valuable material in metal-hungry post-war Japan, but recovery for civilian use required official permission that rarely came. Economic factors accelerated the elimination. Japan faced desperate material shortages in 1946 and 1947. The occupation authorities eventually permitted some salvage of aircraft aluminium for civilian manufacturing, particularly for consumer goods production. Thousands of Zeros disappeared into smelters, re-emerging as pots, pans, and civilian machinery. The speed and thoroughness of this elimination remained striking. Within 3 years of surrender, an industrial infrastructure that had produced over 10,000 aircraft, across 5 years of war, had been almost entirely erased. Perhaps 95% of Zero production capacity was destroyed or converted. Only fragmentary records preserve the details of how these factories had functioned and what innovations they had contained. If you're finding this exploration of post-war industrial transformation interesting, consider subscribing to follow more forgotten stories from the aftermath of World War II. Preservation of any aspect of Zero factory infrastructure occurred almost accidentally. No systematic effort attempted to preserve production equipment, factory buildings, or manufacturing records as historical artifacts. What survived did so through circumstance rather than intent. Several factory buildings at the Nagoya complex avoided complete demolition and later became part of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries' post-war civilian operations. Today, a small museum operated by Mitsubishi Heavy Industries occupies part of the original Nagoya site, displaying some photographs and documents related to Zero production, though little physical factory equipment survives. The Gifu Kakamigahara Air and Space Museum houses some components and manufacturing records preserved by former Mitsubishi employees who recognize their historical value. Individual aircraft that survived tell more complete stories than the vanished factories. Of the thousands produced, perhaps 30 substantially complete examples exist worldwide today. The Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum displays a beautifully restored A6M5 captured at Saipan. The Imperial War Museum Duxford houses another example. The Asukuni Shrine Museum in Tokyo displays Zero serial number 3869, one of the few examples preserved in Japan itself. The USAF Museum at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base exhibits an A6M2 that participated in the Pearl Harbor attack, recovered from the Pacific and painstakingly restored. These survivors underwent various journeys to preservation. Some were captured during the war and reserved for museums even before surrender. Others sat abandoned on Pacific Islands for decades before recovery efforts located and restored them. Still others came from private collections where enthusiasts had acquired them through various means in the chaotic early occupation period. Restoration presents continuous challenges. Original parts are irreplaceable. Corrosion from Pacific environments requires constant treatment, and the specialized alloys used in Zero construction behave differently than modern materials during repair work. Several organizations worldwide specialize in Zero restoration, including the Planes of Fame Air Museum in California, which maintains flying examples. These rare airworthy aircraft provide visceral connections to history that static displays cannot match. The legacy of Zero factories extends beyond the aircraft themselves into questions of industrial capability, technological transfer, and historical memory. American examination of Japanese manufacturing methods influenced post-war thinking about production efficiency and quality control. Some Japanese manufacturing innovations, particularly regarding quality control procedures and workforce organization, caught American attention and later influenced American industrial practices. The wholesale destruction of Japanese aviation infrastructure demonstrated Allied determination to prevent military resurgence, but also represented an enormous loss of manufacturing knowledge and capability. Japan's post-war aviation industry struggled to rebuild from nothing, disadvantaged by both legal restrictions and the destruction of accumulated expertise. Not until the 1950s, with American encouragement driven by Cold War considerations, did Japan begin rebuilding aviation manufacturing capability. Today's perspective recognizes both the necessity of Allied disarmament policies and the cost of such thoroughgoing industrial elimination. The Zero factories represented not merely military production sites, but concentrations of engineering knowledge, manufacturing expertise, and industrial capability built over decades. Their destruction ensured peace but erased irreplaceable knowledge about manufacturing methods, material sciences, and production organization. Modern industrial historians lament the loss of detailed records about how these factories operated, what innovations they contained, and how Japanese engineers solved particular manufacturing challenges. August 1945 brought silence to the factories. Within 3 years, those vast complexes had been dismantled, destroyed, or converted beyond recognition. The race to capture, study, and ultimately eliminate Japan's Zero production capacity concluded with thoroughness that seems almost incomprehensible today. Of the 11 major factories and countless smaller facilities, nothing remains in operational form. Of the thousands of aircraft produced, mere dozens survive. Yet those survivors, carefully preserved in museums across the world, connect us to an industrial infrastructure that once seemed permanent, but vanished almost overnight. If you found this video insightful, watch what happened to Germany's Messerschmitt factories after World War II next. It explores how Nazi Germany's most important fighter production facilities faced remarkably similar fates of capture, exploitation, and systematic destruction. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell for more. Thanks for watching. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.